Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Today we are going to start something new. I know you guys took an assessment last week and it's hard for me to look at the camera, so I'm going to try to figure this out. Last week you took an assessment for classifying quadrilaterals and triangles. So I hope what I've seen so far is you guys have been doing really well. It's actually Friday when I'm recording this. And so all the scores that I've seen, it seems like everybody's been doing fairly well. Anyways, so we're going to move on. So this week, your success criteria is going to be just to be familiar with the decimal place values. So where tenths are, where hundreds are, and how they relate to fractions. So I hope by the end of this week, you guys feel more successful in your understanding of what decimals and fractions and how they communicate to each other, kind of. So let's look at decimal. So you'll see in this box that I have highlighted, I'm going to be typing some things in there. And this is going to be a little longer video than what I've been doing just because this is brand new material for most of you. So decimal place value. If I tell you that you have 25 cents, I want you to take a second and think about that. And you can pause the video if you need to. But if I tell you you have 25 cents, how would you write that? Most of you, you'll see it when I type, will write it like that. So point and then 25. So that means if I had $1.25, I would have $1 and, because that's what a decimal means, and 25 cents. So something that we have to remember is that when we do decimals, it's going to tell us a lot. If I have 25 cents, how many sections of a dollar would I have? How many sections total are in a dollar? How many cents? Well, there's 100 cents in a dollar. So if I had 25 cents, if I wanted it to be a fraction of a dollar, I know that it would be 25 hundredths of a dollar. So this can be kind of confusing, but you can have 25 hundredths of a dollar, or that's 25 cents of a whole dollar. If I said I had 30 cents of a dollar, what would that look like? It would be 30 cents out of 100 total cents that you could have had to make a dollar. I'm so sorry. And then also, we also know that 30 hundredths is also equivalent to 3 tenths. But that would be wrote just a little differently. Instead of having the 30, it would just be 3 tenths. So we're going to move over to this place value chart over here. And you can see that this is a place value chart. And you know from this section of, I just moved the whole thing. From the ones place all the way to the left, you know those place values. But what you need to remember is that it goes tenths and then hundredths. So a lot of times you want to think it goes hundredths and then tenths, but really it starts out with your ones, then it goes to your decimal, and then it goes to your tenths and your hundredths. And remember, it's not tens, it's tenths with THs. So we're going to do a couple different things. There's different forms. You can write them in standard form, which is just the number. You can write it in word form. So like if I say 43 and 45 hundredths, that's how you would say it. Remember, the decimal means and. If we took that 5 off, that 4 would be in what place value? The tenths. So it would be and 45 tenths, or if there was no 5 there at all, you would say and 45 hundredths or 4 tenths. So these would be 2 and 3 tenths or 98 hundredths. This page, slide number 6 of this, really is going to help you remember which place value is what. So that first one right here that I click on and highlight, that's 2 and 3 tenths. So remember, this first place value after the decimal, that's your tenths place. But when you go down here, you would have 98. So that would be 98 hundredths because you have 98 out of 100. So that's what that fraction would look like. Expanded form, you don't really need to know. So then this is different ways you could write those. Really what I wanted you to see is this. So we all are familiar with a hundredths cube. You can see there's 100 different blocks in there. And if I said you had 64 of them, this is what it would look like. So you would have 64 hundredths because that's what place value this is in. Now, if you were to do that as a fraction, what would it look like? I'm going to give you a second to look at that. You'd have 64 hundredths. So that's what that place value would be. We're going to switch now. And I really just wanted to use this for a reference for you, and you can pull this video back up as you need. But really, this is where we're going to be working in this week, and it's going to look a lot like what you did the other day or last week and the week before with quadrilaterals and triangles. So the first thing I want us to do, and we're going to do a couple on every page, and then you're going to have some time to practice. So this is wanting you to correlate the fraction with the decimal. So what fraction do you see here? There's how many equal pieces? Total. 10. And then how many pieces are shaded in? 7. So that means the fraction for this one is 7/10. So we're not worried about hundreds in this one. So remember your place values from the slides before. It'll be point and then the 7. So it'll be decimal 7, not decimal 70, because that would be 70 hundredths. So you have to be careful of that. So the decimal for this one would go right here. So you've got 7/10 and 70, they're both said 7/10, sorry, but this one is, the first one is a fraction and the next one is a decimal. I'm going to do the second one actually with you. So how many are shaded in? 9. And how many total pieces were there? 10. So this fraction, which I know most of you could have figured out, is 9/10. So just like we did with the 7, which of these down here looks like 9/10 in decimal form? This one. Because it's that first place value right after the decimal, and that's your tenths place. So this, you're going to finish practicing with tenths up here for that one. And then also this, I'm going to do 2 of these with you, and you're going to finish it as well. The only difference is this is going to give you multiple choice down here that you can help fill in. And this one you're going to have to type on your own. So I'm going to do 2 of these with you. So same thing. This first one, how many total pieces do we have in our shape? 10. So I'm just going to highlight it and write 10 or type 10. And then how many pieces are shaded in? 3. So that means we've got 3/10 of this is what the fraction is showing us. Now, if I need to switch that into a decimal form, what is that going to look like? I know I'm going to have a decimal because we don't have any holes, right? There's no whole fraction that's shaded in. So we know we have a part of something. And 3/10, what is that going to look like? Am I going to have 2 numbers? Am I going to have 1 number? What place value do I need? So 3/10 is going to look just like this. And you can go back here and reference what the tenths place is, because we know that 7/10 is equivalent to this in fraction form is equivalent to point and 7 for the decimal form. So for this, you're going to have 3/10 and then 3/10 over here. Let's do this next one together. How many pieces do we have total? So what is my denominator going to be? 10, because I have 10 equal pieces. And then how many of those pieces are shaded in? 8, because there's 8 blue pieces. So now I have 8/10 in fraction form. How am I going to write that in decimal form? So I know I'm going to have a decimal. And then what's that going to look like? It's just an 8. So you've got 3/10 in fraction form and decimal form, 8/10 in fraction form and decimal form. So I want you to go back through these and finish this slide and this slide as well. And then we're going to do a couple of these together as well, because these are going to be in hundredths. So it's doing the same thing that you were doing with with tenths, but we have to know now that we're in hundredths. So the first thing I'm going to notice is just, this is where you're matching again, is how many equal pieces make up my entire whole? 100, right? That's a 100 block. Now, how many total pieces are shaded in? We've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and then how many individual? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like 74 pieces are shaded in out of our total 100. So our fraction would look like this. So I've got 74 hundredths. 100 blocks total that could possibly be shaded, but only 74 of them are. So that's 74 hundredths. And remember, we're talking about hundredths now and not tenths. So if I had 74 cents, what would that look like in decimal form? Right here. This would be 74 hundredths. And remember, it's the tenths place and then the hundredths place. Sorry. So this is what those two equivalents between a fraction and a decimal. Let's do the next one together. Sorry. How many total pieces do I have? that could possibly be shaded in, 100, and then how many are actually shaded? Well, we know this row is 10, the next row is 10, which gives us 20, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 25 pieces shaded in out of our total of 100. So that means that fraction is 25 hundredths. And with that being said, what is our decimal going to look like for 25 hundredths? It's going to have the 2 place values, and it's going to look just like 25 cents. Now let's move to where we have to fill it in ourselves. So how many pieces are total in this first box? How many total pieces could possibly be shaded in for our whole that make up our whole? 100. So we know it's 100 block, so it's potentially there could be 100 shaded. If there was 100, I would have a whole, but there's not. So how many are actually shaded? Well, I see one full row, which we know is 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the next row. So we know we have 16 hundredths. We have 1600 shaded, and what is that going to look like in a decimal form? We know we have our decimal. And then what do we write? 16. So we have 16 hundredths. And we're going to do this one together. Same. How many pieces could make up our total? 100. So there's 100 total pieces that could possibly be shaded in. And then how many are actually shaded in? Well, I see 1 full row, 2 full rows, 3 full rows, which gives me 30. And then I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single ones that don't quite make up a row of 10. So I know I have 38 shaded in purples that could as part of our whole of 100. So now I've got 38 hundredths, and what is that going to look like in decimal form? Well, I have no holes, so I know I can go ahead and put my decimal, and then what comes after my decimal? 38. So I've got 16 hundredths and 38 hundredths. Then this slide, it says the length of a ribbon is 84 hundredths of a meter. Which of the following is another way to express the length of the ribbon? So if I've got 84 hundredths of a meter, so how can I write that in decimal form? And you're just going to take this circle and move it where you need it. So this one would have been the answer because you've got 84 hundredths. There was not a whole meter yet. So any of these numbers to the left of the decimal would be a whole number, and we don't have any holes. So that wouldn't be the answer. So your assignment for today, and it's your practice, is I want you to finish slide 2, finish slide 3, 4, and 5, and 6. So I just want you to finish all of these slides. And as always, if you have any questions at all or you need help, just let us know. Okay? Have a great day, guys.